The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teaches that Joseph Smith produced the Book of Mormon by translating the writings of ancient Native Americans that were written upon golden plates.
This book is a translation of an ancient record inscribed on gold plates.
The gold plates from which the Book of Mormon was translated.
Securing from a hill near his home golden plates which he translated by the gift and power of God.
Joseph Smith, who translated the gold plates from which the Book of Mormon came.
Of the golden plates from which he was to translate the Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon was truly translated from golden plates.
Joseph Smith was led to the golden plates, which were translated into the Book of Mormon.
The Church has commissioned and published numerous paintings showing Joseph Smith looking at the engravings on the plates and translating them into English. This is what I was taught growing up in the Church, and I taught it to others when I was on my mission and later when I was called to be a teacher. However, there is a problem. The principal method for translating the Book of Mormon involved Joseph putting his seer stone in a hat, putting his head into the hat to block out the light, and then dictating the text to a scribe. The golden plates, which were supposedly and painstakingly created and preserved by ancient prophets and angels for centuries, were not used. David Whitmer made the following observation. Joseph Smith would put the seer stone into a hat and put his face into the hat, drawing it closely around his face to exclude the light, and in the darkness the spiritual light would shine. A piece of something resembling parchment would appear, and on that appeared the writing. One character at a time would appear, and under it was the interpretation in English. Brother Joseph would read off the English to Oliver Cowdery, who is his principal scribe, and when it was written down and repeated to Brother Joseph to see if it was correct, then it would disappear, and another character with the interpretation would appear. Thus the Book of Mormon was translated by the gift and power of God, and not by any power of man. That was kind of an important fact that I should have known. Sure, it was published in a quote in a magazine article near the back once. However, I was taught an incorrect story several hundred times in the lesson manuals, church talks, and general conference addresses by the prophets themselves. That they published this quote once in an obscure way means that they knew what the real history was all along. Why would they knowingly teach me a false narrative? The seer stone that Joseph Smith used to translate the Book of Mormon was found while digging a well for William Chase. Seer, or peep stones, were not unheard of in Joseph's culture, where belief in folk magic existed. Many other people owned magical objects like seer stones, dowsing rods, and talisman. Joseph owned multiple seer stones and a Jupiter talisman during his life. Before he translated the Book of Mormon with his magic rock, Joseph was involved in folk magic, money digging, and treasure hunting. The desired treasure would often be buried in a hill or forest, sometime guarded by ancient spirits. He was often employed to help others find buried treasure. The principal means of doing that was to place his magic seer stone into a hat, look into the hat, and then describe where the treasure was. While the people who employed Joseph believed in his ability to see things in his stone, no treasure was ever found in any of the expeditions he was a part of. He was tried on a charge of money digging in 1826 and convicted of being a disorderly person and an impostor. He was described by some of his contemporaries as a con man. Joseph did confess to his wife Emma and her father that he could not see anything in his stone, and promised to give up the practice of money digging. Joseph's method of defrauding people who were looking for buried treasure is the exact same method he used to produce the Book of Mormon. When I first learned about all of this, I was shocked at how unbelievable it made Joseph seem. But, more importantly, I realized that the church had been teaching me a false narrative my entire life. Why did they do this? Why didn't they teach me the truth about where the Book of Mormon came from? Why did this church, which I had devoted my entire life to, betray that trust? And what else was there that they had lied to me about? I can only guess as to why they orchestrated a false narrative about the translation method of the Book of Mormon. From a modern perspective, the idea of God transmitting the text of an ancient record through a magic rock to a convicted impostor while his head was buried in a hat is just ridiculous. It is not believable. Quite honestly, it's embarrassing and has its roots in 19th century backwoods folk magic. Constructing a story where Joseph did a scholarly translation of the characters of an ancient record he found was a much more logical and believable story. Perhaps this is why a false narrative was adopted, which would manipulate the faith of both the members and potential converts in the church's favor. In the last couple of years, the church has come clean about the use of seer stones in the translation process. The Church History Museum was remodeled and has a display about the seer stones, and the church's magazine published some very nice pictures of Joseph Smith's magic rock for all the world to see. After years of constructing and promoting a false narrative, why did they do this? This information has become easy to find from credible sources on the internet. Even apologetic resources like FAIR were admitting that Joseph Smith produced the Book of Mormon using his magic rock and a hat method. The church could no longer hide or deny this information. Should we give the church credit for finally being honest and coming clean about the translation process? They knew all along that they were teaching me a false narrative, and the only reason they have started to teach the real story is that they have been compelled to be honest. If the brethren were compelled to be honest due to circumstances out of their control, are they truly being honest and trustworthy? Would they have kept up the charade if they could have? For the leaders of the church to knowingly teach a false narrative to members who trust and believe in them to teach them the truth is a betrayal of that trust. Are these men who claim to be prophets, seers, and revelators really champions for truth, or are they more concerned about their own power and authority?